Hi, I'm Madison Mary and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, please don't hesitate to click that subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get into my March wrap up. Hello, how are we doing? Okay, I read a lot in March. I don't think I'll ever be able to top January, which was 14 books, but in March I read 12 books. Okay, technically it was like 11 and 4/5 because I finished one of the books on April 1st and I had like nearly no pages left, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna include it in March because it's just, why wouldn't I? So I'm really excited to get into the stats. Like I said, they were 12 books, 10 of them were physical and 2 of them were ebooks. The age ranges were 1 middle grade, 6 YA, 3 new adult, and 2 adult. The genres were 8 fantasy, 2 historical romances, 1 contemporary romance, and 1 paranormal romance. And then my page count for the month of March was a even number. It was 4,700 pages. So as per normal, I'm going to be starting with my lowest rated reads and working up to my highest rated reads. However, I'm doing it actually a little bit differently because of the fact that I have 5 books that I didn't rate. And you're probably thinking, what does that even mean? And if you have seen the video that came out just before this one and also another video that came out in March, you will know that I read the Grisha Trilogy and also the SOC Duology with my dad. They were a freaking blast to film. I had so much fun filming those videos with him and I cannot wait to move on to ᴛᴏᴏᴅᴅ eventually. But yeah, I read those 5 books and I am not rating them because I read them all the first time I read them. I read the SOC Duology the last time back in 2019. I'm pretty sure there's a reading vlog for that somewhere. If there is, it'll be linked up above. But the Grisha Trilogy, I don't know, like, I don't want to change what my original ratings for all the books were 5, 5, and then 4 stars when I first read them. And then this time around reading them, I just decided to give them all around just like 3.5, 4 stars because they're fine books. Like there is really nothing wrong with them in my opinion. The only difference was this time around, I didn't really want Alina to end up with anyone. Her and the Darkling, this time around, I read it and I was like, no, like why would they ever, like it literally makes no sense, like why would they be together? Like ultimately, I'm fine with how she ends up, who she ends up with. But yeah, that's those 5 books that I read. And now moving on to the other 7 books. So I have 2 3.5 star books. They were both 3-star reads, but were bumped up half a star for specific, like, tiny reasons, and I'll get into that. So the first one is going to be Someday My Duke Will Come by Christina Britton. This is a historical romance. It's the 2nd book in a series. I made the mistake of not reading the first one first, and sometimes in historical romance series, that's okay. You can read them all individually and it's fine. Some of them you will find that even though they're called standalone romances, there are a lot of things that still occur in like the previous books that make the other books more enjoyable. I didn't dock off any stars because of that, because that's just my own personal fault. So we're following Lady Clara Ashford and Quincy Nesbit. So Clara, you learn like within the first 20 pages of this that she was ruined during her first season, but no one actually knows that she's ruined. It's a secret that she's been able to keep all these years. And with that ruin came a lot of other traumas that she underwent because of that. And so as a result, she now lives quite a simple life. She just wants to help everyone else out around her. She just wants to be a spinster and she doesn't really want to be anything more than that. And then we follow Quincy Nesbit, who is the 4th son of a duke. When he was a child, after his father passed away, his mum and his 3 older brothers were just kind of awful to him and they were going to ship him off, and so he runs away. He has been in America this entire time and he's finally come back to England to visit the man from the first book who's his best friend. And when he comes back, he decides, you know, it's about time that I kind of reconcile what happened with my family and kind of be like, surprise, look, I'm here, and then leave again. Except for the fact that when he goes back home and he sees his mum is just distraught. She's like, what are you doing here? She hates him. She's an awful person, but she's like, what is happening? And he's like, just wanted to come see how all of you were doing. And she's like, Quincy, are you serious? And he's like, what? And she's like, your brothers are all dead. And he's like, what do you mean they're dead? She's like, you're the Duke. You have inherited the dukedom. We thought you were dead, so it went on to your cousin, but you're back, like, you now have to run the dukedom. And he's he's a mess because of this, because he's never wanted to be tied down to the dukedom, and as a result his mum kind of wants to remain control over the estate, and so she tries to set Quincy up with this woman. And as a result, Clara steps in and is like, no, he can't marry her because we're engaged. It's them with their fake engagement. It's very much friends to lovers. It's quite slow burn between the two of them. I adore their romance because they are such perfect halves to one another. But overall, this was just like an average historical romance for me, which is why it was a 3-star. Clara's backstory is extremely sad and heartbreaking, and I cried for her. And if I cry in a book, I always bump it up. So it's a 3.5 because I cried for Clara's backstory. There are triggers in this. The thing is like, it's a spoiler, but you know what? I'm just gonna do a quick spoiler warning for what the trigger in this is. So if you don't mind, great. It doesn't change the plot of the story at all. It's just something that happened to her as a result of being ruined. So I'm gonna put up a little spoiler. It'll be like for 2 seconds, and when it's gone, come back. She got pregnant after being ruined and went through the entire pregnancy, and she had a stillbirth. So the baby died when she gave birth to it. And that is something that she is dealing with a lot. You don't learn about the stillbirth until like halfway through, but it is very traumatizing. And I do have friends out there that have a lot of triggers around pregnancy and these kind of things. So I did want to mention it just in case. But yeah. Then my next 3.5-star book is Fortuna Swan by KJ Sutton. I have an entire fantasy romance vlog going over my feelings for this book, but basically it is a dark fae romance. So you follow Fortuna Swan, who is a nightmare. She is a race of creature that is not very well known. Her kind was kind of like hunted down to extinction, and she and her brother were the last of her kind until her brother was just disappeared years ago, and she's always been trying to track him down. When this starts off, she ends up coming into contact with this fae who says that he knows where her brother is and he can take her to him. And she says, okay, well, what's the catch? And he goes, well, for me to bring you to where he is, you have to marry me. She doesn't say yes right away, but then she does, because her entire persona and her whole point of being is to save her brother, to find him. And so she says yes, and then he ends up taking her to the Unseelie Court. If you don't know what the Unseelie Court, it is the darker of the two fae courts, is the Seelie and the Unseelie Court. It is basically rife with torture of humans, torture of just any other kind of creatures, abuse, slavery, sexual assault, just like everything bad in the world is in the Unseelie Court. So this is a very, very dark fae romance. Like, I went into it thinking like, oh, I know it's supposed to be dark, but no, it's very dark. There are a lot of triggers in this book. I was fine with it. I was just a little bit shocked. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a 3-star read the whole time. And honestly, part of me wants to maybe knock it back down to 3 stars, just because as much as I did love like the last 30 pages, she undergoes trials in this book, and they are the exact same trials as what happens in the Akrita series. So if you have read that and you go into this, they're the exact same. Like really the exact same. I did some research to see if there was anything about like these trials that is like in fairy folklore. It's not. So that was just like, I just thought it was really unoriginal. So it was 3 stars. I really did, yeah, I'm giving it 3 stars. I've just decided that right now as I'm speaking to you. I'm giving it 3 stars. So as much as it was really interesting, it was a great take as like a dark fae book. I don't normally see a lot of the Unseelie Court being shown in such a awful light. And as much as I did love Fortuna is awesome. She's so badass. Like, she is a morally grey anti-heroine. I'm excited to continue on with the series. I do plan to continue on with the series, but it was pretty average as a first book. Then we have my 2 4-star reads. I actually have not talked about them on here yet because I didn't vlog these 2, but they were both arcs that were sent to me. The first of which is The Last Shadow Warrior by Sam Subity. This is a middle grade and it was so much fun. It is Norse mythology and it is actually a take on the Beowulf legend, which I didn't know until the very end. You don't have to go into this knowing anything about Beowulf. You learn what you need to know as the story goes on. So we're following 12-year-old Abby Beckett, and she comes from a long line of Viking warriors on her mum's side of the family. However, her Her mum passed away a couple years ago, and so Abby has just been living with her dad ever since. They have a very sweet relationship. That was like one of the big hallmarks for why I enjoyed this book so much, was their relationship. The role of Viking warriors is to defeat these creatures called the Grendels, and one day Abby is home alone and she is attacked by a Grendel, and as a result her dad quickly moves them to Vale Hall, which is located in Minnesota? Yeah. It turns out the Vale Hall is secretly the place where the Viking headquarters is, and she gets there, but when she arrives, she ends up finding out that apparently the Grendels don't exist anymore. They've all been killed, and that the Vikings will now be disbanded, like they don't really need to exist anymore. But Abby is dead set on the fact that she was attacked by a Grendel, and so with the help of her two new friends, they end up looking at Vale law and looking at what's really going on at their school and if there really are still Grendels going on, and it's really fun. It reminds me a little bit of Percy Jackson, not too heavily, but a little bit. Like, I think if you enjoyed like the first couple books in that series, you'll enjoy this one a lot. It's really fun. She has two friends that she meets when she gets to Vale Hall. One of them is Grimsby and one of them is Gwen. Grimsby is just a regular human. He's hilarious. The reason why I say this is like Percy Jackson is because Grimsby reminds me a lot of Graver from the Percy Jackson series. He is just the comedic relief. He's hilarious and I adore the crap out of him. And then Gwen is actually a Valkyrie because, you know, with the Vikings and the Valkyrie, like that's just part of the whole mythology, and she's really awesome. But that's basically what the series is about. It's a really fun middle grade. I can't wait to see what else comes from this series. This is a great middle grade debut and I would highly recommend it. My next 4-star read is To Love and to Loathe by Martha Waters. I have been loving this book all over social media, so if you do follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you will know that. So we're following Diana, who is Lady Templeton, and she is widowed, as well as Jeremy, who is the current Marquis of Willingham? Yes. They are infamous throughout London society because they are always bickering, they're always fighting, but they also have like this crazy hot chemistry between the two of them that they've never acted upon, and they are just always the talk whenever they are in a room together. So what happens is Jeremy and Diana are having an argument during a ball one day, and Jeremy says that he's never going to get married ever, and Diana makes a bet. She says, okay, if I can't find you the perfect wife and if you can't get married within a year, I will give you £100. And he says, bet, like, okay, that's fine, let's do it. That's never gonna happen. But then Jeremy, who is very much a rakish character, he has a lot of mistresses. His latest mistress gets upset at him after some events and ends up telling him that he is crap in bed. And he is just distraught from this news. His ego takes a huge hit. And so he's like, okay, I need to figure out what's going wrong. So he ends up going to Diana and making a secondary proposition, and he says, look, you're coming to my estate next week for my week-long party that's going on. Do you want to embark on an affair during that week so that I can find out if I do have some bedroom problems? And she sits there and initially she's like, why would I ever do this? But then she realizes that she is a widow. She's been widowed for 2 years now, and she really wants to get back out there. She wants to, you know, take on some lovers, but she doesn't really know how to tell these men that she's willing to take on lovers. And she's like, you know what? If I embark on this affair with him, at least it'll let men know that I'm interested in taking on lovers, and it'll also give me some more experience in the bedroom for when I do take on these lovers. So it's them having this friends with benefits kind of relationship going on for this week-long event while she's trying to still set him up with other women, and they're such a mess with their emotions with one another because they're so determined not to fall in love, and it is just hilarious watching the two of them. I adored their banter. It was just the funniest thing ever. The reason why it wasn't a 5-star read is because Diana does get told a secret in confidence from a character in this book, a very damaging secret, and then Diana turns around and just tells her friends, and I'm like, bro, that is so not cool. Like, it really rubbed me the wrong way that she did that, because it just didn't mesh with how her character had been behaving throughout the entire book, and I really didn't like it. And then there were some parts of this is considered like a modern take of a historical romance. So if you're someone who's just trying to get into the historical romance genre, this is the great way to get into it because it's more of a contemporary modern take on historical romances. But because of that, like, there was some aspects that kind of jarred me because I am a traditional historical romance reader. But overall, super duper fun. Highly recommend it. If you were in a reading slump, definitely pick this up. Then I have 3 5-star reads, the first of which is Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzales. Oh my god, I love this book so much. It's not even funny. So we're following Darcy Phillips, and she runs a secret dating advice service in her high school. Basically, there is this locker in school, and people can write a letter to her that explains what their dating problems are. She will then collect those at the end of the week, and she will then respond to everyone via email with some advice. And this has become like a huge business for her, but no one knows it's her, like it's completely anonymous. And then one day, obviously, she's going to get the letters out of the locker, and this dude's just there, and he's like, aha! Finally, I caught you. And it is Alexandra Brom, and he is this sexy Aussie who is a star on the swimming team, and she's just like, out of everyone who could have figured this out, why is it you? And he goes, hey, look, I'm not going to tell anyone, but do you think you could give me some private dating advice in return for me, like, not saying anything? And she's like, this is blackmail, but okay. So it's her helping him with his dating woes because his ex-girlfriend and him broke up a couple months ago, and he wants to get back together with her. While Darcy is trying to help Alexander out, she's also dealing with her own unrequited love. Darcy is bisexual, and she's actually in love with her best friend. What happens is Brooke ends up falling for someone, and it's Darcy trying to deal with that. There's a lot that goes on in this. Darcy is the epitome of a messy bisexual, and I loved a lot of the conversations that went on in this. We have a lot of great representation. I can't speak to all of it, but I really appreciated the internalized biphobia conversations that were going on in this. And I actually found myself tearing up a little bit during this book because there's a whole conversation to be had in this about the fact that when someone is bisexual and they start being interested in guys, people just try to erase their queer identity. And that is a huge thing that Darcy is going through throughout this book, is not really understanding like how her bisexuality appears to other people and kind of feeling so unsure about who she is as a person. I laughed out loud so many times during this. It was hilarious. The characters in this act like typical high school students, which I was really appreciative of. And like I said, Alexander, he is an Aussie, and he's an Aussie who has been living in the States for quite a few years now, which is like me, and I thought he was the perfect representation of what it's like to be an Australian, living in the United States, being in high school, what it's like to still have some of your old quirks and some of the old things and slang that you say being an Aussie. Sophie Gonzales is an Australian author, so that is a huge part of the reason why this is accurate for once. The next 5-star read is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. Amazing. So in this world, we have many different kingdoms, but there is a kingdom known as the Bridge Kingdom called ɪᴛᴛᴇʀ. And they are very revered because they have a bridge that allows a lot of trade, and they're kind of the trading hub between all the different kingdoms, and they're very revered because of that. And years ago, there was a treaty put in place between the King of Maradrina and the King and Queen of ɪᴛᴛᴇʀ that when their children became of age, they would marry, and as a result, Maradrina would then get cheaper trade exports. The King of Maradrina has 12 daughters, and he has raised them all in seclusion to become spies, so that one day, when one of them does marry the future king of ɪᴛᴛᴇʀ, she will be a spy and will help take them down from the inside out. We are following Lara, who is chosen to marry the new king of ɪᴛᴛᴀ to be his wife, bride, and spy. Literally within the first 20 pages, she is there. She's in ɪᴛᴛᴀ, she's at his estate, and it is her falling for the king that she is supposed to essentially take down, kill to an extent. And I loved it. It is truly an enemies to lovers romance. They do not trust each other at all. Even though Lara acts very docile and sweet in Aaron's present, Aaron is the king, she is constantly plotting ways to, you know, deceive him and to spy on him. That's what I really love about this book, is I feel like so often we hear that our characters are spies, assassins that have been trained all their lives, but we never actually see them do any of that stuff. Lara, the entire time, she is constantly, her mind is always going, and she's like looking at everything that's going on and is analyzing it, taking notes, and she's just, I loved the way that she was written in this. This is kind of pitched as a fantasy romance, but the romance is very, like, it takes a long time to progress. Like, until the last, like, 60, 70 pages does anything happen between the two of them. So do know that, but the reason why I love this book was just because I loved Lara so much, and I loved learning about this world and the courts and the politics. This is an extremely political book. I loved it. It was badass. I cannot wait to read the next book in this series. It is a duology, and then there's going to be a companion series later on, and yes. The last 5-star read that I have to talk to you about, I'm very excited. I will be featuring it in an upcoming vlog, but I will give you a little bit of my thoughts on it right now, and that is Black Sunshine by Karina. I received an e-arc of this and I loved it. It is an adult vampire romance. It is pitched as a dark vampire romance. I don't think it's dark at all, especially not after, you know, Fortuna Swan. So in the prologue of Black Sunshine, you are following these two vampire slayers who are witches who go to this estate to take revenge on these two vampires. But when they kill these two vampires, they find out that they had a child. And this child is not normal. She is not a regular vampire because she isn't dying by the regular methods. And so they realize that there's something special about her and they take her in and raise her as their own child. So that child is ḽᴏᴏᴅᴅᴅᴅ, who is the character that we're following in this book. She's turning 21 in 2 weeks. She's really excited. Her life is going great. And she doesn't know the fact that when she turns 21, she's actually going to turn. So what ends up happening is ḽᴏᴏ is kidnapped by this vampire mercenary because he wants to sell her off to the highest bidder. It is their romance. I loved it. It is considered dark, but the only dark part of it is that she was kidnapped and that he was her kidnapper. But I loved them together. It was so steamy. There was a lot of blood play. Like, vampire sex is some of my favorite sex. I will admit that there were a couple of moments in this book that were a little bit cringy just because there were references to TikTok and erotica on Kindle, which kind of took me out of the book a little bit, but I otherwise adored it so much. It was so enticing. I could not put it down whenever I was reading it. But yeah, I'll be going more into my thoughts on this book in actually a vlog that comes out next week. So do keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited for you to see it. So yeah, those were the 12 books that I read in the month of March. Let me know what your favorite March book was down below in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch everyone. Bye.